Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the PH Journals podcast. So much to talk about on the last episode for 2025. We're going to bring you guys up to speed with what's happened as far as CITES is concerned, together with the Bontebok. That's a very big or massively important topic. It's been on everyone's tip of their tongue over the past couple of weeks, of course, after the CITES convention. And yeah, some massive news. If you guys have been checking out my socials, you would have seen we have signed a pretty massive deal, and I'm very, very excited about it. So, all in this week's episode of the podcast. And I'm feeling more blessed than what I was last year, and I can't thank you guys enough. At the start of every podcast, I do this. I just show my appreciation for everyone that's truly followed me on this incredible journey. There's no money involved when it comes to podcasting. I just do it because I love it. I love having sounds kind of strange, but I might just enjoy having a conversation with myself. But it's slowly but surely become a little bit of a passion project for me, and I've really, really enjoyed it. And the support from you guys has been absolutely out of this world, and I can't thank you guys enough. However, it's crazy to think that there's more than 60% of everyone on different platforms. So combine it all together, there's over 60% of listeners listening to this podcast that aren't subscribed to any one of my channels, which is crazy to think because the support is unbelievable. I would have never thought I had so many downloads. But guys, if you don't mind, it takes literally a couple of seconds. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, like on all the other platforms and stuff. It really goes a long way for me to keep doing what I'm really, really passionate about. Like I said, the money, it's got nothing to do with that. It's all just about gaining traction, gaining a little bit of exposure, and just keep motivating me to just push those boundaries continuously. At the start of the year, I promised that I would try and do a podcast every single week of the year. It hasn't worked out like that. Life has pretty much caught up to me in a good way. I'm forever grateful. But yeah, just the motivation behind everyone just listening to what I have to say on a hunting platform or on Behind the Camo platform, on Men's Mental Health platform. Everyone that just hears what I have to say, it just really drives me forward, and it just helps me keep staying motivated to keep doing this, because I really and truly am enjoying it. It really is such a wonderful thing that I've latched onto, and I hope I can grow from here. So guys, yeah, that was a long way around trying to say to you, please just like my stuff and turn on the notifications and do all of that sort of stuff. So please, that's a promise from me to you, that I'll try and make this podcast as best as I possibly can, with new guests, enthusiastic guys, people in the industry, men's mental health, beyond camo, all that sort of stuff. We'll be bigger and better come 2026. Guys, crazy time for the hunting industry. I'm going to start off pretty much with this one. And a couple of weeks ago, probably last week or the week before, CITES had their annual convention or whatever it was, and the hot topic, well, as far as South Africa is concerned, the hot topic was the Bontebok. Now, I promise you I didn't plan it out this way. A couple of months ago, I did the Bontebok hunt, and it hasn't, I mean, a lot of people have commented, well, sent me messages and interacted with the episode. But I never knew that it would be such a significant episode to air. And why it is significant is that the Bontebok has officially been removed off the CITES Appendix II. Now, what does this mean? Now, myself and Wayne, who chat on a constant basis. We spoke probably yesterday or the day before, I can't remember. But we spoke about this, and I was like, there's still a long way to go before it actually gets off of the actual CITES, and we can start looking at, what's the right word I'm looking for? But we can start looking at how this whole thing really plans out. Well, to be fully honest with you, I think it's happening, or it happened pretty much almost immediately. So I did a little bit of research today and yesterday, and I did a bit of a deep dive on the internet. Ooh, bumping this new fancy setup of ours here. I did a bit of a deep dive on the internet, and I wanted to figure out as much as I possibly could before I came on the podcast. I was meant to air this podcast on Wednesday. We waited a little bit longer, obviously with everything that happened this week. But I wanted to make sure that I was factual, I was correct, and I was as informed as I possibly could be. So, here is what I have, and this is what went down. Now, I'm going to try and give my honest opinion about all these sort of things as we go along. So, if you don't mind, I am going to read what I've written down, just so that I can stay factual, just so that I can stay on point, and make sure that the facts that I'm giving you guys are as close to accurate as they possibly can. Look, I think a lot of things can definitely or possibly will change as this goes on. But let's have a look at it. So, in my notes, I've got here, at the 2025 meeting, CITES had a proposal to delete the Bontebok from Appendix II, which was introduced by the South African government. The proposal was accepted. That means that Bontebok is no longer in the CITES Appendix. So now what does this mean? Previously, Bontebok had been listed on the Appendix II since 1981, which is a very interesting date. As an Appendix II species, export required to export the species required a special export permit, and trade was regulated under CITES. We knew that this was happening. The trade was increasingly difficult to get those Bontebok around. With the delisting, those international trade regulations under CITES no longer apply, at least not under CITES Appendix. According to some stakeholders' reports, that this opens a way for less restricted trophy trade and trophy hunting. Okay, with that all being said, what does this mean in simple terms? What does this mean for hunting Bontebok in South Africa? And you are not a South African citizen, you're coming from the States, because it was an absolute freaking ball ache to get Bontebok over there. Zach, who joined me this year, he's one of our biggest worries was trying to get this animal out of the country. There were blood tests, DNA testing, and all that sort of stuff that needed to happen on the particular ranch that we hunted them on. And it did happen. We've got all the blood work and all that sort of stuff, but now it might sound like we don't even need it. My poor friend, my dear friend, Pat, who's been on this podcast for many, many times, he's waited almost 4 years to try and get his Bontebok out of the country. Obviously, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes hiccups there that we're not going to get into, but other than that, it's been an absolute nightmare to try and get Bontebok over. Traditionally, what I've always learned and what I know about how we used to have to get the Bontebok over there was that before the client came out to hunt and he knew he was going to take a Bontebok, he would have to pay an agent in the US to apply for an import tag from US Fish and Wildlife. That import tag would have a lifespan to it, so which means that it would either expire after a certain period. He would need to, with that import tag, come out, hunt the Bontebok, and with the correct documentation, this side, blood tests, DNA testing, all that sort of stuff of those specific Bontebok herd, then us as South Africans, with that information, we would apply for an export permit, so that the two permits marry once it gets to the docks, and then US Fish and Wildlife can sign it off and say, oh, this is a Bontebok, cheers, get in your crate, bugger off to your destination, and get hung on your wall. That's how the whole thing was meant to go down. Well, has been going down for a couple of years now. What does this mean now with after this delisting? And bear in mind, I could be completely wrong about this. I am going to list some of the, I'll probably try and list some of the references or the resources that I had or where I found this particular information. It's still very, very new. So for this to actually be 100% accurate, I would be naive in believing it. Do I want to believe it? 100%, because I think it benefits us as hunters. But I could be very naive in saying that, or prematurely say that these are the rules and regulations or what are going to happen. And it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The fact of the matter is you'll be able to import Bontebok without a hassle. But, this is where the big but comes in. So I'm going to read everything to you guys. So with Bontebok being removed from the CITES Appendix II, under the recent decision at CITES at the COP20, the international trade regulations under CITES will no longer apply to Bontebok. That reduces administrative documentation burden for export, which means ranchers, exporters, and hunters, will significantly have less paperwork. Now, this I found on the CITES website. And therefore attracting more investment into the Bontebok protection programs. For the hunting industry and the private game reserves, this could make Bontebok trophy hunting and export more economically attractive because fewer regulations, hurdles may encourage more participating hunters in hunting these majestic animals. The delisting, the prior delisting limited trophy import markets to the US. Okay, from the US side. No, wait, let me just finish this off here correctly. Okay. So, in simple terms, from the South African point of view, for hunters, ranchers, and exporters in South Africa, delisting makes this a win for conservation, which means that we could ethically hunt and conserve Bontebok through the means of hunting. For the US, what does this mean? Okay. Bontebok plainly are delisted from CITES, so they're not classified as a CITES animal. But, and here's where the but comes in. Yeah, let me just try and find it here quickly. Okay, here it is. Under past rules, when Bontebok was under the CITES Appendix II, importing of the sports or trophy hunted animal into the US required a CITES permit, which we explained a little bit earlier, export permit, and an import permit. And the US import permits under the Endangered Species Act, the ECA. This I found out from Discounted Hunts. Historically, the US import permit was only granted when certain enhancements criteria were met. Like I told you guys about the DNA and all that sort of stuff. That was first done in 1997, but in 2018 the relevant findings for Bontebok were revoked, meaning that permit approval became more uncertain, reviewed case by case rather than under a blanket rule. Now the important part about that point is that the reason why it changed in 2018 is because that we know the Bontebok, we know that the Bontebok population was kind of being diluted through the means of the Bontebok, which was kind of like a little bit skeptical in some sense, hence why we had to go the DNA route and all that sort of stuff. But because the Bontebok is no longer on CITES, it doesn't mean it excludes other countries from having restriction on importation of the Bontebok. It purely means, from a South African point of view, it's a lot easier for us to trade with this animal. Get it out, trade amongst ourselves, export it to the US. How it gets into the US and how it gets received and distributed is completely separate. And that will fall under the ECA on the US side, which I'm assuming, I'm not saying this is factual, the ECA in the past, when these sort of decisions have been made, have kind of followed suit and relaxed the restrictions from their side. Now, for the greater scheme of things and for the bigger picture, I think right now everyone just needs to stay calm and play their cards correctly and try and work around this as efficiently as we possibly can. What I mean by this is that if you're an American hunter and you're coming out to South Africa and you've got Bontebok on your list, put it in the hands of your outfitter, your professional hunter, and your taxidermist. I'm pretty sure by end of show season next year, we would have a much clearer pathway of how we are going to be exporting and importing these trophies. So in closing, on the Bontebok topic, guys, if you haven't yet, please go along and go and check out my Bontebok episode. I had an absolute amazing time hunting that animal. It was scorching hot. It was the last, now that I realized, it was the last ever hunt I ever had with my Magnum 375. Haven't sold it yet, but I don't think I'll be hunting with that bow anytime soon. And yeah, what a memorable hunt. And it was definitely one that I'll hold very, very close to my heart for a number of reasons, but most importantly is that we've played a part in conservation, in conserving these beautiful species, because yeah, with habitat encroachment, dilution, is that right word? Diluting these numbers through crossbreeding with the blessback and all that sort of stuff, we could have possibly lost the species for a very, very long time. But because of the hunting industry, we are ever grateful for the men and women that put the hard yards in to bring the species back to the respectable number and for a massive win like we've had right here. So I might have sounded like I'm all over the show when I was reading the facts, and when I just wanted to make sure that my direct conversation and my direct dissection or what I took from that was as factual as I possibly could. I would love to sit behind this mic and say to you, "Nah, guys, go wild. You know, we've done it." But you got to be very careful in these scenarios because it could very quickly. It's still very fresh and new. It could be a big misconception and a turn that you wouldn't want. So take it easy. The more facts that come out, the more I'll share with you guys. I hope there's a lot more to come out, that we've got a little bit more clarity to it. But from what I've read and from what I've researched, I think we're on a very, very, very good road. And I'm so grateful for everyone that's put in hard yards. And it's so lacquer to see. Yeah. Guys, with that being said, I thought, well, let me leave it until the end. We're closing the podcast on a beautiful note. Yeah, so when was it? It was early November. I got a phone call, and I actually got an email. And it took my breath away. I was going to become part of a team that I never realized would have such a massive impact on my journey going forward. Fast forward a couple of weeks, Ironman didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I came down with diverticulitis and pneumonia, which set me back, put me in a very, very bad hole, couldn't get out of it. But in the back of my mind, I always had this massive accomplishment. Sorry, excuse me. Fast forward 2 weeks after the Ironman and disappointment settling in, I jumped on the phone call and I was like, Reg, I need to come see you. And he was like, bud, come down. Let's get you set up. And you only kind of fathom what that really means once you walk through those doors of Archer's Edge. Now, being able to shoot a Matthews bow for me has been something, there's just that one thing in your career, no matter what it may be. Motocross, rugby, cricket, whatever sport or whatever hobby you have, there's that one goal item that you always seek to want to achieve. And for me, it has always been a Matthews bow. I've been a massive Matthews fan since I got into the hunting industry. I never started out as a bow hunter. I always wanted to do bow hunting, never had the fortunate opportunity to do so. And then when I started making grown-up money, I realized that, hey, well, hang on, nothing's really holding me back now, so let's explore this opportunity. So I picked up a bow for the very first time in 2019. When did I do that? 2018 with Will Nelson. I'll never forget the day. It was a wounded blue wildebeest. Managed to find it. And we had the whole team there. Will Nelson, Dave Ogard, all those guys, they were there. And it was Dave's blue wildebeest. I was the PH on that hunt. That was wounded, ran for the whole night with this arrow just pissing blood out the side of it. How it survived, no one really knows. Anyway, we finished it off with a rifle. But while we were busy processing the animal and taking photos and all that sort of stuff, Will gave me this PSC, very short bow. And he said, just take a few shots. And there was an anthill over there, and he had a couple of arrows with him, and took a few shots. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And subsequently, he ended up giving that bow to one of the trackers, which was my tracker at the time, William. And I used to, when we went hunting, I was shooting a lot with it, and I really enjoyed it, but I never took anything out of it. I knew I always was going to do it, I just didn't know when. Anyway, fast forward a couple of years, COVID happened. Without us hunting, I managed to get out to the farm as much as I possibly could, linked up there with a good mate of mine, old Grant Acton, and he really ignited the fire. I was filming him while he was hunting pigs and stuff. And I went out and, I really started enjoying it. So pretty much from 2021 did I only really take it very seriously. And I've never looked back. And since that moment, I became professional hunter in 2009. But probably around about from that, no, even before that, probably about 2000, that passed away 2005. Probably around about 2007. Matthews bows for me have always just been the pinnacle of any hunting adventure, like Sarko rifles or Rigby's or something like that. But I always knew I wanted a Matthews bow. How I was going to get there, I didn't know. And I went through a couple of bows. So 2021, I started shooting with the Elite. 2022, signed the deal with, we constructed a deal with Magnum Archery. I got the Magnum 375, and I never looked back since. That was also a PSE. And, and this year I decided, I always have in the industries to build relationships and value those relationships more than anything else, because honesty and true friendship in this industry is very hard to come by. And it's understandable, right? Because there's a lot of moving parts to this industry that doesn't allow relationships to be built. good, bad, ugly, movement, busy. It's just crazy how this whole industry works without having those relationships. So for me, having relationships of good people, good friendships, people that I can pick up the phone and answer is very, very important. So when I called Reg and we sat the very first night, we sat there for probably about an hour just discussing how this whole deal was going to go down. I put the phone down and I remember thinking to myself that it's not just anything. It's not just those brand deals you sign from time to time or anything like that. It's a relationship. It's a friendship builder, and yeah, I've never been so happy. So Wednesday, jumped on the first flight out of East London, landed in Johannesburg, went down to Archer's Edge, and pretty much opened those doors, and I was treated like royalty. I only had 2 hours to dial in the arc, and Reg did a fantastic job. Guys, when I say I'm shooting a grouping of a little bit bigger than a R5 coin at 60 yards, I'm not lying. That's how good this bow and the setup that I have really, really is. And there is going to be a YouTube episode launched, so please, guys, go along and check it out. I'm so pumped up about this setup. I'm so excited to get 2026 going. I've been shooting arrows at 4 o'clock in the morning. Just that's how much fun I am having with this bow. But yeah, I just thought, well, let's close off the podcast on a positive note. Although the Bontebok news is also very positive as well. But and that's it, guys. The close of the podcasting season is officially here. It's bittersweet because I get some time off and I am going down to the Wild Coast, so I'm looking forward to that. But at the same time, I know there's a lot of hard work to come, and I'm going to try and make the same promise I did at the start of this year. Next year, every week, more guests, better guests. We're going to make it happen. Come hell or high water. But we're kicking off the podcast next year in 2026 with show season. I won't be in the shows next year, but I can definitely help you guys along the way. So, with that, like always, if you are, have a wonderful Christmas with your family. Have a beautiful New Year's. Don't party too much because the hangovers the next day are cuck. But I wish you guys a massive festive season. Thank you so much for all the support. I really, really appreciate it. And like always, if you are, happy hunting. Until then, stay safe, stay blessed, and stay humble. We'll catch up with you guys soon. Have a good one.